我也当做公路工的，他正当做看去的，我就从这公路到全球新巴了，你绝巴了，那就两次连住，全球个新建的，你绝巴了就是他的，就家的这件家里多少吧，这张被就家，我当然就新上过结果我的上面新过了，刚一动力去过我的新过了吧。
Mm-hmm.
Sims mo countries kyo gore tongne countries kangi tongne country
Mm-hmm.
kyo gore anda beji dina ne labu do ro
Mm-hmm.
che dan beji za chmo shyo ji re do indu ne de ge beji di tön de ne ji rani ji go ge thanda chi de nyama ma yin ba che de wa ran la ka de che sim je tham je ne ga da ta du ge di ji du ya chi de ni gi yu sam be gon wen lo shen be chen ju sim chi go mu ya go se ta shyo osra
Mm-hmm. Our motivation is that we are listening to this Dharma, the wheel weapon mind training. Really, it is concerned with the Bodhisattva's conduct, behavior, and practice, and advises what the text expresses as to how to act in that regard. So, of course, we know in that context the importance of cultivating a kind heart. We know the importance of being able to take on or bear difficulties, be patient with them, cultivating kind heart on the one hand and taking suffering on the latter hand. So in that sense, what this text expresses is very precious. The meaning is very precious and is very great. So in that context, thinking not just for oneself, but all of the kind sentient beings existing to the limits of space in order to fulfill their temporal and ultimate purposes or needs. One will listen to the text with that motive.
Rồi, đó, có cũng là họ làm rồi, nên để去去冲的，给我生活意义，苦个也会意义挺多。
Rejoicing that we have the chance to listen to such precious teaching, precious Dharma. Opportunity is good.
어야, 단다디, 아니, 먼저 가서 그래. 다 전주 셈상고, 아니, 지하도 뭐 전주 셈배 냠len 쳐요, 봐. 전주 셈고 냠len 세야디, 신라 편도 지하들에다, 봐. 한국 아니 신라 편도 지인 삼군론제로 봐. 아니 군론제네, 네, 스스 르당하고 네 신라. 편도 지하래, 하고도 전주 셈배 냠len 지니지나. 갱의 거자 가르충부 있는 무슨 셈바 직신의 편도치야게 셈베 토스 kir심바 지구고 요래 어디 대치야게 타블랑 그런 바디 라비 요래스로
Now, in terms of cultivating the kind heart, which is the bodhisattva's conduct, bodhisattva's practice we need to engage in, it is this thought to be of benefit to others. So, first we need to motivate to help others. Then our body and speech has to follow in like, in kind. And the next point is when you meet non-conducive conditions, negative conditions, they have to be a support to that notion of helping others. You have to use them as a support.
다 아니 저다 직제디 유지답디
Are we 27 or 28? 28, isn't it? 28, yeah. Geshe new subject.
다 유지답제디 데 시적군로 로드몽베스 당어서 뒤gün 내룩 신야라 아니 몽바스데 메시바지 용거도와 메시바들라 몽바스 그래 몽바다 마리바도 지과래 마리바스나 마토 몽바스나 마시바 아니 시적군로 로드 로드 심 로스니 셰럽지 트레디 마시베 온게 몽바 용거라 아니 다 근데 영향이 가래서 라비나 아니 지금 연구도 가서는 롭죠 베자 된 가지 되게 점나 심나를 마셔야 수수 삼노다나 마셔야 아니 지금 되게 내주 지 망부지 연대거든 그래서 저저 네지 저 레디 가리레 레레 라비나 랑기 겨우만 취미 일래라 주보라 취미인 별래라 주보 아니 랑기 자와체바디 취다 미딘 별래가 제바 뭐든 아니 지 어딘데게 다 취미기 자와체발라 되네 아니 시절라 몽바디 중벌에 스타간다로 제자 디인주 또 니시저 로드게 탑시 셰럽게하게 함랑조드 가서는 퇴바다 선바다 공부시 퇴선 공부 치고 요래서 어디 시기요라
When one's intellect is blind toward all that is worth knowing, when we have what's called a darkness of mind, a mongba, kind of like an ignorance of not knowing something, or even the way we engage with things is with a mistaken wisdom. And there are times when no matter how much something is explained, it kind of doesn't go in. You don't get the point, or even though you study a lot, you still don't get the point. And this happens a lot to us. And this one has to ask from the perspective of cause and effect. What's the karma behind this? It is because instead of doing things in accord with Dharma, we did things in accord with what was not Dharma. So in that sense, we followed things that weren't harmonious with what was taught in Dharma. So therefore one is blocked, not in accord, let's say, with Dharma. So one was blocked from knowing. One now is blocked from knowing Dharma. And therefore, what is the method to know Dharma? It is the wisdom we increase by hearing, reflecting, and meditating.
다 개지슈디 퇴삼 와 철이야지 퇴외 바자 마샤 인자 바자 세투고야 말와 다 저도 데레와 나네 다 최민이 자와체나 딜레르고 다 베낭저 직 소주그리 망고 제와다 디벌레 맹고체나 디베게 딥제베 가서그래 샤워베디 드럭스 사우나 신차되고 타무타무 싫어
Yeah.
디버 딜라 딥tip스로 딥베 온게 딥 디버스 딜랭에 베낭안도 된데도 그런저 만조 단다 룩다 근데 니 망보 세서 여러 된데를 도이나 미 뒤준 장마 되더니 남사 제 미망고 차에 저거 저거다 미망고 차 아니 되네베데 니쿠네 간도신의 니쿠 진도 그래서 딕tip스야로 야 사저 쪽발게 쪽tip스야로 근데 뒤준이 지jel에는 에너지 좀 망고 잡되거든 이라 쪽tip스야로 딕tip스야로 야 레tip스야로 레고한게 팁스 레님바사를 온게 레tip스야로 어데 집세야들 망고지 용다 망고지 열다 그래서 상마 간다 레행엠 바래다 간다 레행엠 바 레미게와 티체벌 되네 수수 티차게 열어
So in terms of hearing, that's a tursum goblet and a tursum chiklit yomaris. So in terms of hearing, reflecting, and meditating, we should not just leave it at the imprints at the hearing level. Coming back to being obscured from knowing things, the non-virtuous actions of, for example, taking life, can almost make one in a bewildered or drugged state. The Tibetan word here is digdrip, which is like a type of obscuration that comes from doing non-virtuous karma. So like if you're around people that have killed lots of sheep, they can get like red eyes. You know, there's these kind of diseases. But also, whenever you try to sit and do your practices, your prayers, you feel sleepy. Or, you know, you guys talk about a place having a bad energy. In that case, the pollution is it's a kind of karmic pollution. And also there can be pollution from the actions they've done. Basically, all of these are non-virtue resultant. Does that mean?
maybe the people no obstacle
This is some comic observation.
two years ago
Okay, it's on now.
that is
Should we try now? This was some lane image, right? In a schedule under them.
지난주 이워드 책제도도 퇴속도 퇴와 something 좀 어디라고 이 야고 퇴에서 퇴속 세저라 퇴속 세 속되는라 아니 퇴중단 삼중단 공중 저랑도 사고하시 이제 퇴중 삼중 갔으나 퇴중 세야 돼 먼저 상모 암절 망고 연구라 쳐 당보 쳐니 니네 지 신기도 퇴버디 지고 말다 퇴버디 질 어디 지 시기도 뒤지 신기도 딜라 퇴중 셔라서 보라 아니 되네 뒤제스 셰버들 야네 양도 상무단시도 상무단이 셔라들 삼중 셔라 퇴버디 전다시양 다시에서 유샤는 대핀도 말아 아니 대양자 퇴시버들 다디레샤스로 가르잖아 배나 단대 주시는 게 단다 내다만 신의 녀마 로좀만 제바라 레로 제바기 교레샤스 땅아 로좀 체고도 다니 로좀 제베다 sembasambo 체고도 sembasambo 컨데스 체고레스 니 양네 삼마다 삼중체 다 대리 간라 심 지 미당 도 토디로 체인데 심바상고 전주 심을 민에 투송 공존 차산시에로 와 당고 전주 심 공고래 심바상고 최고래 암절 퇴로 다디네 네 아야야 다디 심바상고 지야레샤 최고도 메제나라야 심바상고 스니르메나 강이 제냐레샤 라나 마지와 셴나 마지
Samba, Samba.
심바상고
Anybody.
칸 하드로
Yeah.
제자 다디인디 다 되게 간라 심 샤제로 대강을 셈샤 심마인 버체 아니 미 식도자 라와 당 카레 라위나 텔라 콘도마사야 그래서 내가 밀레 펜도시 지링에 밀레 카르체네 콘도사고라 이슬람데 안 찬주스를 미베 곰중기 셔럽 톱고요라 셔럽 냠레다 곰중기 셔럽 신이 상하다 야와다 내제 토르데 곰중 셔럽 냠레 차고요라 와다데 인산 투중 삼중 곰중라야 돼 아다 낭바산지에 최역이 아니 냠레 지나 그림바 차상 디나는 뒤로 그래서
For those that are new and have not heard this three of study, examination, meditation, sometimes hearing, reflection, and meditation. So actually, everything we do in the context of Buddha Dharma can fall into these three. So just hearing is not really what's meant here, because you're actually supposed to listen. I mean, you can hear something without listening to it. Anyway, this first one of hearing, first you hear it and you listen and then you think on the meaning. But there are cases where there are things you just don't know because before you could have studied, but you didn't, and it's laziness. So for example, with regards to cultivating altruism or a kind heart, one first has to hear and listen about the methods for it, and then the second part, contemplation, to think on it again and again, is the reflection part. Here, of course, the focus for all of these activities is bodhicitta, all sentient beings, but first you are listening about it, then you are reflecting on it. And then when it comes to the second stage of reflecting, one tries to make that in a non-wavering manner, making it more stable. So then, because you've heard and listened to the benefits of not getting upset when someone gets irritated towards you. You practice patience, you're not angry. So you cultivate that in practice. And although at this third level of meditation, we might not have reached a stable concentration with it, we're trying to practice it like that. No.
아디 출라 주주 니기 누베스 담배출을 디와사 원이 랭을 선절하는 거의 다 대지리 단위 취지를 가와제 맞췄어. 출라 당도 출 간도연체로 진다 진다라 진다 출 유릉문이는 니후도 아니 간도연치도 니후도 어디 담배출을 디와사 그래 담배출에서 해야 되나 니요로 롱게 출다 도배 출스로 아니 디버사 수디 제가 딜라디네 디버사 페나 먼저 빼자로 빼자라야 아니 남마 빼자 남이 다요 아니 빼자 지와 강배오로 아니 빼자라 빼제 띵도 지 잘라들이 샤로 나 빼자라 니지 총거지 잘라 총거도 시샤 빼자라 마쿠이베기 녀바들 때네 니용요로 데 롱게 출라 템베기 아니 and diversa zudiresro that's it gyawati nare and chamamala de chewal dine ngo khandenda inde shidi ni kuya de odinde leg to ongres wora.
Verse 29, there are times when we are overcome by sleep when practicing Dharma, like when we go to do our prayers, or if the class goes too long, we start to fall sleepy. And we can, this is because Dharma is divided into two kind of areas, isn't it? Or two sets. There's the set of scriptures and then the sets of insights. With regard to this first one, that everything that represents scripture, from not respecting the texts, for example, stepping over them, disregarding them, putting things on them, even maybe selling them, not respecting the scriptures, that we have done that in this life or past lives, falling asleep when one does one's prayers and so forth, as the result of that.
그래서 당아주 맹어만이 아주 라고요. 빼자. 당아주 빼자단 저 뭔가 차가 있는 하고도 그런 인지기 빼자 프레드 살마샤야도 빼자도 좋아.
Yeah,
이제 특징이는 추군줄 추도 시샤와.
yeah,
나 먼저 사과도 당랑도 신경 말아. 먼저 이제 가서 골라 60도 치료도 60도. 근데 저랑도 신년적이 방마샤야. 근데 하고도 프리북 레르메지 되나나 베 추 돈다 된자로 봐. 근데 저는 남이다야. 딘데체다 다 너도 다져 되는 거 사고도 다져가는 이기만 거기 배제가 다 치른 체제 되는 티셔라. 근데 그래서 니구야가 유치한 거로 니구야다 메시바. 메시바 체야게 다 레랭이 버도 라틴에 사기요래와.
And the thing is, these days we connect with the scriptures a lot, and we should not leave them like anywhere on the ground because of our interactions with the scriptures. Even one word we should treat as the Dharma jewel. And there are sometimes people who come from outside that are new who don't understand this. So it's good for us to try and make people aware of this. And particularly the freebies. The books you give away, the Dharma books that one gives away, they could be perhaps thought of as not so valuable, but actually they have Dharma in them too. And then we have to take care with flags. The prayer flags often have mantras and tantra on them. Now, disrespecting all of the above, the result is sleepiness, and mishipa means you are unknowing with regards to the meaning of Dharma.
The longer church, Togwechula, and it didn't deduce the Togwa Juletini, Givation, down to Zolaya, and Niemucha, Shingimare, Pukbare, Jongumare, Niemuch, and Shingimare Lavadi. And the Pejot, the Shingimare, Susul Machine, Lessa and Gorara.
And insights, creating that with regards to the insight set of the Dharma, the non-virtues. If you were to say, the spiritual friend, he doesn't know Dharma, he's a fool, really you're left with that karma just by that thought, isn't it, of someone not knowing that is the cause, and you get no result.
Well, the day in Tani Chuji Kawaja, Tani be Chelo Makua. Machia than Lunguchul Mugo Machia, Dogway Church, the Dogwa Church Guladini, Karam Gavation to the Makuba Chigimes, Tizamase, the Zola, Kataya, Shingimari Laro, and the Kupare Laro de Lana, Susilesa, Yorara, Subsachigin.
Yeah, so from now on, undergoing hardship means taking care and not disrespect the first set of Dharma, the scriptures, and then secondly, with regards to the spiritual friends, not to criticize that they don't know and so forth like that.
That you and that's it. Injury, Numono, and that is Nishida good person. That's some Judy, Numon Lacao, Namila, Namincho, Numon Lacao. The Jashe and Shingy Nola Chavala Sadun Level Lacao. Mila criticizes Shell Kawa. Migi Jongo Shell Kawa. Mila Condoline Kawa. Wa Shella Nitunjung Chesu Shell Kawa. Zola Numona Gasigro. Numona Kawa. Tizamase Namincho. Demodaya Kawa. Shetan Kawa. Any chick de touching Zagzig in Delwa. Negabi, Tam Lakawa, Ming Lakawa. Did that Naming you check your. Do you know the Karesina? 아니 겨워 대당 겨워가말 미다고 당 코웨님이 마고 말해서 미다고 상무 다야다 코웨님이 마고 인자 아니 디 가보차기 요라 어딘데 송거다로.
When I delight in the afflictions and am greatly distracted, delighting in desirous attachment, aversion, coveting others' wealth, wanting to be wealthy, being critical easily angry, to look down on others. And then there's these other distractions of entertainments, always being distracted by that, or a name, going for a name. And all of these have a maturation. And all of these have a cause. And the cause is like, in this life or past lives, one didn't reflect on impermanence. One didn't reflect on the shortcomings of samsara, cyclic existence.
제가 뉴몬라데 칼라고라스나 란줄레데 칸산 심주 마시와치니 심중질라 뉴몬 슬라고요라 뉴몬세야들라 인지민지 심중로와 배차시나 되자 시당 공도 마제 타도 그 상만 뉴몬로와
Nagyalva.
마제 뉴몬로와.
So when we talk about delighting in afflictions, the definition of an affliction is that when it is produced in the person's continuum, it makes the mind rough and unpacified. And, these afflictions are mental factors: desires, attachment, ill will or hatred, jealousy, pride. They're mental factors.
다 디페나 먼저 되자로 실라베나 노르로 지로 잘라로 야고스토요 땡올라 중나선 차바지 다 델라덴데 다 델라페 잘라 부타고도 배샤 관점보라 아니 배샤디 라로마체 아니 디톤도 구마자고야 된데 차고요 뇨도 연구요라다 근데 아니 지 미신다 그 둘로라 야고스 콘도는 야땡알라 중로 지나서 미상말라 연구민도 가시 미가시 남미던 거더라 저도 제가 미다고다 거의 이미 건배기 변차고요 미가시 남사 책 잘라직 통마다가 아디고도 이고도 승고도 해서 심나는 남사 지금 레오야데 가서는 수수게 제대로 경험을 거의 이미당 미다고 마본벌 때네 작심도 게임이요레스
작심
차고 있음 봐도 토와도 녀모도 게데 님이 먹으면 되는 총어에서 거라.
There are some that have desires, attachment. When they see others that are wealthy, they think, I got to get it, like that. But in dependence on that, often the things that you want, they mean dollars, they're expensive, and sometimes there's trouble because if you don't have the money, you steal to get it, and then trouble comes. And then some people have that attitude when they see others wearing clothes, automatically they want it. Not everyone. Some people have reflected on impermanence and the demerits of cyclic existence, but some people, when they see things, they don't even think about it. They just go, right, I need that, 1, 2, 3. So that would be from either this life or past lives, are not reflecting on impermanence and the demerits of cyclic existence. And in that context, the conditions for desires, attachment, and anger arise easily.
다 코르발라디 먼저 다 코르바스라긴데 코르세 시르와 코르세 시디 아니 감섬데라 코르바 포디 라니르와 아레
Rila.
코르바스라디 다 레다 뇨모 안게 칭딘죠들라 코르바스오다 레다 뇨모게 칭친제라 코르구요르와 그래서 코르발라디 응외스야 데스 가고요르와.
This notion of cyclic existence, we could say its basis is the 3 realms, but the person that cycles is you. And the notion of being a transmigrator is that you are bound by karma and disturbing emotions. Therefore, you cycle. It's not so easy to get a handle on cyclic existence.
다단다 친시지여로 딜삼도네 고르 단다 나라 일루디 코르바레다 루디르와
Yeah.
다른 삼다신데 그래.
Now, it might be easier if we give an example. One's very body exemplifies cycling.
Lü de la sajen yol be phungbo se
And why? Because the body is 5 contaminated aggregates subject to clinging.
nge lü de la lü rakwa dang lü thara sum sha
Yeah, we can, and the body is gross, subtle, and very subtle attributes, isn't it?
ta lü rakwa de ni kyo de la ta jigdu ko prang ngo de ga ro ina gyun di dosha ko dar gyun di ro dar
And the gross level of the body in this life, it disintegrates, comes to an end, but its kind of continuum continues, doesn't it?
当这六个在云的引进民去看对呢，俺就叫他们这个六个在云下面叫要嘛的，可是呢，俺就查单，包括都是和旁边国家的穷人，今天呀，俺就卡拉达的些的穷人，对嘛，现在前面贴了下着过来，贴了下呢，俺就六个在云的这些呢，买到个在云小锅茶、新茶、去茶，
I see.
可能了这着过来，来这着过来，这绿rakwa的这着过来，但绿。이기 루세 저러가서 어디 이루데다 겨와치면 준데 누구여다 이루.
Now, if we look at what we talked about on the gross level of the body, the substantial nature of it, although it continues, we don't need to, well, not necessarily traceable to past lives, because it can be the substratum of the parent sperm and ova, but also what sustains it as food, isn't it? But when it disintegrates, it can go to dust, and that can be fertilizer for flower, trees, and so forth. So that's kind of mixed. But when we talk about the mental body, the mental consciousness, to past lives that can trace, we can.
지산데 미다고 삼는다나 저 야고다 수수르르 미다고 삼는다나 야고다 미다고 학과도 가셔라라 아다 미다고디 기부친구 초거래라 아 기부친배 영아 년련치기 미다고 저 응아 년련사고 첸되래라 정말 미다고 저거들은 시 삼다마도나는 단지가 온게 내로래 단지가 온게 되자셔를 때 맞게셔를 콘도셔를 돼야 착심처럼 돼야 대화처럼 돼야 연구여라 그다음 미다고디 가도 있는 공부여라 닝지 게래 미다고 공부여래 미다고디 니 코와기 니미신에 미다고 삼는 당고도 하던다 수수 류를 삼는 당과 류직도 와다 류직의 류 제준의 거도 그래라 제준의 배나 겨치마들라 하루지 겨링이나 하기 류디야 이지류로 이지란 시를 밤에 그라던데 게 요마래 제가 그 대인들 하글류디 레단 개베도 그 중에 제비지 성인자 콜라 밤에 그라기 닐랭고 요마래 제가 먼저 밤에 그라기 닐랭 제디 류디라고 하는데 내가 가서다 그 야제네 마시사고 류디 조사르디 dum직 조사다 이거 동간 저자 지고래라 그냥 할래도 동간 신다시 리더라고 동간로 한한에 든들레도 동가신다지 두세네 류 라과티 고 제균디 조로데게요라 류 타와 이길루 일레 템베 류죠라 지난 류시야데라 타라 망고지 샤샤교라
일레 템베 류
일루 소라 일레 템베 류서 니람나 그래서 니람나랑도 사제신달도 동행료 체기원 체용도 류르도 녀도 디 일루래고 밀람일루 헬레장 타외야 류제 샤야다 류들 타라만 거지 제가 여러 와 제단디 따도도 나고 미다고 상담하는 배야고다 그러
It's important then to reflect on impermanence, particularly with regards to the body. But you might think that this is just the initial capacity scope practitioner's meditation. And you might think you're practicing Tantra. But it's very important to constantly do this, because if one doesn't, there's a danger that you might start again to grasp at yourself being permanent, under which grasping stronger attachment, aversion, and so forth is generated. If you want to reflect on compassion, impermanence is important. If you want to reflect on the faults of being under cyclic existence. Impermanence is important. So then the question is, where do those substances of the body go? And it is one reflection one can do on that gross level. But if you look at something like because, if you look at something like a god, they have a light body or a mental body because of the virtuous karma they created. The body that they attributed did not need the sperm and ovum of the parents on that gross level. So they don't have to see the disintegration on that gross level. But it is just like changing guest house, isn't it? As we mentioned, it's just like you're taking another form. So you're now in the guest house-like form of a god. So therefore, we can see this term body can relate to many different gross and subtle levels. And so we know that the more subtle level of the body is when we dream. It's a mental one. And in that mind, you can go places and experience things. And there's even a more subtle level than that. So you can have gross body and then mental body. No.
이제 미다고 상단에 나무네 개점물에로 그래서나 나서 뒤 직 소연나가 뒤묘모 망버치 수수 타고로 슈지 임바 상단제로 근데라지 코고로 직 체드 밀려야 직 남미다야다 랭인사야데 들들네 용구더라 뉴디 하고 뒤즈튼뒤지리 되드는가 겨와치마도 나는 아저씨 하고 말아라 이사 미시엘에 시라시라 고문도 다로 예 남린나래요 치제만신 순제용와서 사디자 치제만로 는제 다 칼라라 마면은 칼라지 미소야게 미소미야 즉 소야게 체드 레데로 칼라 다디자 칼라를 지나치고 삼례사라 칼라 미세기도 알아 제가 다 뒤에 된데 랩사래 아니 칼롱 바도 도고요래 아니 제조 제담 멘다 제담 멘다로 제르도 케미컬로 케미컬 담다 케미컬 데저다 수분을 도디 저 미수분을 기쇼 제레요 랍사라다 체리로 기쇼 수부디 기쇼 제 지금 요리 랍사라 다 갈래 아니 기쇼도 찬 룩룩디 들으세요 아tem지 간다 미다고 상단은 치긴 망고 쇼래 서야게 겐유유유래 아니 제가다 디즈링가 직추 겨와 디지고 많이 봐 겨와 치마를 패야게 내가 지금 비인 상단은 아니 추를 도고 열어 그래서 디인데 지금 그거 플레인 밀을 펜도 쳐야다 추가 나게 인구 신을 펜도 쳐야 들어다 근데
It's important to reflect on impermanence because somehow we're so thickened with afflictions, we think I'm tough. Well, so kind of hardened. And with that, you might look down on others, disrespect them and so forth. But in reality, the fragility is that just meeting us in a small time, we can pass away to the next life. And these days, people don't like to die. So... But like it says in the Lam Rim, that the conditions for death are more, and the conditions which preserve life are less. And we seem to be at the time now where we're just so fussy over our food. And, there's all sorts of chemicals that we could take in. And these days, scientists are even finding plastic within the blood of people. Isn't it? This has been a recent finding. So we should meditate on the impermanence of the death and these outer things, and make use of this life more in the sense of this life and future lives. What's important is Dharma in terms of impermanence, because the essence of Dharma really is to be able to help others.
ane kowe nimik sam dadra ba iden miru sibe pinzo swa iden ske yo mana ko di ro nelu longje kazo pinzo wa na tanda yugi mewa cha do re
Yeah.
ya mewa chen bezun shin chu yong do pa do do shida iden ane ngarang zo thobu thomu le iden chen ske yo mara yongi toge re ro 제자다 iden che de tambe che ba shi re da ro
There's not sure you can trust the things within the cycle existence as one of its faults are not stable. You cannot trust them. Friends come and go, you acquire things, and then at other stages you can't acquire them. Yeah, so.
다드네 디오기 쇼르가 신다디 칼스 숨지 담으래 숨지
Samjha Sochik
소직
Marve,
숨지 소직 들어
31 now.
숨지 소직디 데레다 미지 레거로 지 잠바이네 야게 드라면 마도르도르도르 드라와 아니 최 제외네 곰식야외네 야야게 드라면 마도르도르 드라와 문에시나 최 제지 미심바 상로 당 야르야도르 상상랑도 인데도 최바다 최저다 최기겐 망고 년제로 비베 저바 두자 쉬우시로 뭐마레 도르 신제로 뭐마레 대화민교로 이지민교로 마제차로지 차로에 가르에서는 근데 경험은 레준데 쳇사로 레준데 도와지 마지막야당 아니지 소제야당 안다지 팀 단계에 내가 뭐 제일 인상 유팀 요라 유팀
Yeah.
유팀 단계는 내가 제도서 어딘데기 데부리 데기 렉사가 요레스다 겨와딜레 체 경험을 하면서 근데 뭐 제일 인상 먼저 지 간도게 줘도 야제 되면 마마 두루두두 카시 마두두더라 어디 수수기 녀바 말에 개개 시에마신 바 말에 수수 랭님이 겨와 랭인데 온 수신 요레서 렌데 칠서 아 디인자 단위선 렌데 칠수 지금이었다로 지 겨와두야다 미교 방야 딘데 지금이스 어디 송요래
There are cases when whatever we do, things don't get better, they get worse. So, through our meditations and so forth, we should be becoming kinder and kinder and kinder. Or through listening to the Dharma a lot, there are cases of people whose behavior has even gotten worse. And sometimes as a result of not having faith or tremendous pride in the past, this life or past lives, things get worse, particularly because you didn't respect the law of causality and dependent origination. So in a sense, this is not like your fault particularly now or your teachers, but it can be the result of disparaging this law of cause and effect. And what's said that from now one shall strive to accumulate virtue and abandon non-virtue.
디 닝가요를 먼저 뭐지 아니 렌데 레체베 되어마레 소체베 되어리스라 수수 깔레 잡느라 봐 깔레 잡니 되위용 거래 미지 깔레 맞는 좋아 세딜라 봐 알아서 저는 밤마다 아 내가 채우래 내가 채우 빼셔서 내가 채우서 아 디janjan 라데그라 아니 틸라다 레 미망고지 빼셔서야 시도 레다 감면다로 심진을 뇌베 내가 미신다를 뇌베 내가 고유를 뇌베 내가 요소스를 빼셔야지라는데 가르치는 시로 밀을 뇌는 뇌서 렌데케서 어두저 두고였다고
I see.
저저 두고요
So then even like almost like we can be encouraged to make a living and to be successful, to get wages at whatever cost. Even sometimes parents say, go out, get a job, be successful, make money, get a salary. But oftentimes one puts so much effort and one harms others in the process. And this is a type of disparaging the law of causality and dependent origination.
That less in the Yomarista and the Landel. Susu Kalejana, Susu Deverista.
So the notion is that, karma doesn't exist. If you put effort, you get the result. You did it. Almost like this notion that you did it without there being that causality. That's disparaging. Yeah.
Yeah. Mikashe Pesha the Kalek Jana Pesha Swell Kagan Shudora.
Yeah.
Then Pesha Ravi to do Joe Shujin on Zodiac Doko, Namzanam Zoda. Jason Dine Carrero. Yeah, Mikashe Chidanta Kale Javro, Kalemajana doing Umara. Kale Legatele, Bezinshida Chigundo, Koran Legate with Alamsan Legara. And Pesha Ravina, Pesha de Be to do the level Zoya made in Europe, Pesh, Longje, Jurumbu in Europe, the Yondik Dora, thing on the Mig Tonguda, there are. Dick, Dini Kawa the congestion or chick, Kale shoot Jagato, and like what Tambo shoot chick or the color of the Yawamasa to load the Yawama from Chase Degger. Kaduina be Comburo, Janja, the Pesha made in Europe.
Yeah, like a poor.
Oh, they dig though. Ricci College Besha Beveroji, Millage, Madame Suze Beveroji, Toya made in Euroji. You dig to Odi Kunjo Surera, Kunjos and Kunjo Kawatan. Pesha this mustang. Colatang, Almadan Cares. Things are the Kunjos like this. But you lose it generally on the Nangway. Yawamas is leg Yawachemachella. Jimbata Lende, Lake Yawasana, Tilatine to Wayne Goro. Let me go sana, Tilatine to Wayne Goro, a ditch and Lende, and Jimbata, Sudan Soyata, Sorokomyata, Tendeche on the Tine. I said, Delon Jumia, the name we are. Then, Tanganzo, the Lende, Kemalini, Manguda Dwara. Haku Mara, Hakumana, Kelim is in Manguda. Deladine, Tundusan Kea Maresra. So Jenna Keamers. Jexishina Keamers. Not Jangwis, Jexishan, Nami Jangwis. What the Deladine, Suzuya Gedra Minjo. Pesha in the Wood Zoria, Senator. No, to the time the Taring Busam done or the Chen Hagura.
Then a question comes in terms of behavioral cause and effect. How is it that some people work extremely hard and put such tremendous effort, but don't seem to get the result of their hard work, or they can't get a job, or, they put the effort, they get some wealth, but then immediately they lose it, that wealth that they've got. And then on the second hand, some people without much effort get a job so easily, and somehow the money they make tends to last a long time. How come the difference between the two? If you're really down and out, why don't you just give God a call? And and then can you send me some more money? But anyway, but that's not the approach we would have as Buddhists. We would say that under the constraints of past lives, the fact that we did not give, or we gave or not, is commensurate with our wealth, and that we did non-virtue, so now that we're suffering, or that we were generous, so that now that we have wealth in this life. And of course, there are many people who would not accept that law of causality, behavioral cause and effect. And in that unknowing, if the lives of animals are taken, people lie, and then they think it's being clever, then it's not a far step to think, oh, why things don't get better for them, or why they lose their money fast, or why there's misery. We have to think quite far in this regard.
That's the TJ, Sony. rimdu chende pena ngazo mikaje naza nane naza dur doya ani shabdin do chene ma shabdin ma phen ya de yung do oduzo kharere la yende ani kyawa de dan kyawa ngamala ani chö mayimbe nagwe chö mayimbe gyawala chö mayimbe mige wala kawache ro nagwe cho mige leche la kawache tizamase ani lengemba chini gi midu la kawache lengemba chini du la gyabjoche lengemba che ya ge ani chashi mangbuti tende lengemba che yinza ani thare kyawa de la ya ani chi menju che na menju khran la nuba yor de la susu lengemba de menju nuba de pingyo mare menju pe ya chi de shabden ro che wi na pingyo mare teza mikashe la shabden che na lamsan pingdo mikashe pingmindo oda di kares di 수수게 나고 미게 와서 레 미게 와라 이제 숙청부체 대자마세 아니 미게 와 진이 미드들 가보치는 봐 디버산이들 도부디 가보치 잡교체 차시고 근데 제가 인사 아니 되게 렉 되고 안게 수수 나자이나 둘둘도야 당 아니 좀 그렇지 마피아 용해도서 이 레디가 되고 있었대 그래서 다 세부 도저 문에 시에나 야고도 알아.
It is good to know these examples. They're very clear. When all the pujas, I guess, religious rites I perform go awry. When we do ceremonies, pujas, yeah, but they are not successful. They don't work, or medicines. But anyway, pujas that don't affect when we do them for a specific purpose, then in the past life, one has actually liked doing non-virtuous things, acting bad, and supported or hung out with bad people or supported them. So then it's true, isn't it? Sometimes people have pujas done for specific reasons, but it helps some of them, and sometimes it doesn't help others. And, actually the potential for it to be effective is there, but you don't get the result of that potential. And this is because of the non-virtuous things that you did in the past and or friends you helped. And this is the result of that.
그래 당연한서 미 lokbajigla yiji chena antela dinne langa lokbajigla dogurata.
Yeah, it is the case that sometimes when we rely on kind of a mistaken friend, we can go down a mistaken path.
이 최마인기다. 저 미교와 심질로 뇌에 내가와 저줄라 아니지 갑교체 로고체나다 대외장 인대이로와.
Yeah, and then when it becomes non-dharmic action, non-virtuous action, then either directly or indirectly, we're harming sentient beings.
다 가셔야 수술을 내놔서 중화당. 아니지 우부 차바당. 근데라 바둑라 미카시 군조들 소왔다나 군조 진로로 주제 다른 남도 죽든 줄 내놔서 타도야로. 지금 롱조 무슨 소고 용해야 되는 용거래. 미리지글데 용거요 말이야. 용거 매윈자 다 산제 라 초민도 쓰러 산제 용에 소왔다 인스 이지 체인스 말 펜도문도스. 근데 라야디 용거요. 디 가르스나 수수게 아니 겨왕하면서 산제단 최단 긴들들 이제 맞체베시
Vale.
디 때문에 말해 디요 말해 디 말해 근데 제베게 아니 이제 매베 년을 때네 아니 체들라 수술라 델라 덴베 펜윈도 용구요 말해서 디 군조 중원에 마 누가 매바다 마좀 붙은 데 말해 수수 겨왕하면라 아니 산제 최 긴들 군조 들라 이제 매바당 아니 저 정보 말해서야 당 이 겹고 말해서야 당 된대게 이제 제와당 깨져셔와당 된될 때네 제들라 군조로 써왔다네 지 추기진나 맞어야 아니 롱교 마야야 그거 뜻이 랭이 제베 되는 군조는 이름이 말해라
Verse 33, when one's prayers to the three jewels go unanswered, Sometimes people get ill and they rely on the 3 jewels for the blessings to heal, and those blessings or the prayers can help. But yet another class or group of people can do the same and it doesn't happen. There's no benefit from the prayers they do. That can happen. Why is it? That is because in the past, one has had no conviction in the 3 rare sublime ones. So you could have thought that, for this person in the second case, when no result happens from the prayers, you could lose faith or think, oh, that's not working. How can that be? And in the past, you would have thought that, had not had faith in the 3 jewels, not been honest towards them, and or thinking that they can't afford you protection. In reality, the potential for us to be protected by the 3 sublime ones is there, but we didn't get the result because we did not have conviction.
아니 군조 코너 템버차스다. 그래서 기도 간대 치고는 네. 산제 잡던 거당 최디 잡고당 긴뒤 치고디 잡도 다도라 이치베 거네. 띵긴 예스로 군조 숨 땡단데 땡룩 땡단데 이제 야고시나 야고요. 산제디 잡던 거 수수 개개나시레스. 니 잡고디 치고군조 로롭종 치야레 메나시레스. 잡 산제디 멤버나시라나스. 군조디 잡도베 다도스 수수를 메요로 로고나시레스 롭두나시레스 덴데기 상단도미나 군조 땡단데
Tendang.
디르와다 저다 군조 땡니 가르쳐는 수수 심 겹고고요 수수수 겹고고다.
Yeah. From coming back to that verse then, from the perspective of Buddha Dhamma Sangha, there's no notion of close and far. So now with this verse, from now on I shall rely on the 3 jewels. It's very important here to have a good mode of reliance. This discrimination, isn't it? That the Buddha is the teacher, the protector. The Dharma that is taught by the Buddha is the medicine, and finally, the nurses are those that support you in your healing or affect that. Sangha affect that. But it's good to understand that reliance.
that 드링 디나라 따지단다 참모베 내가 전부 전야르신다 디나다 베 내가 망고 두고도 다라 지단야 망고다 셰모고체 저디 미다바다 코에님이 삼다야 아니 렌데 송야다 아니 렌데레 이지치야 아니 하바드 지 수수 개베신이다 그래서라 녀메당 카마다야 록다마치야 근데 진짜잖아 수수를 내고도 밀레 페저다 내고마라 아니 하바드 군조선야지 아니 베 이지치단데 산제군조 잡던다 쇼군조 잡 빈두군조 잡도에 따로 다 내가 전부 하는.
Today's verses have mainly been about the importance of reflecting on impermanence and the faults of cyclic existence, and having, conviction in the law of cause and effect, behavioral cause and effect, and also not disrespecting the spiritual friend or criticizing. And why? Because it ends up harming us and not those outer things that our minds are directed towards. And then this mode of reliance is very important. Seeing the Buddha as the teacher, the protector. And secondly, the Dharma jewel as the real refuge. And then finally, the Sangha as to help us to support you on that. Because really the real protection is oneself.
다 계시 캐말레나 카단지요 말다 계시슈트로.
Yeah, and the most important thing is if you don't accept, don't turn and criticize.
한다 팅두게 체리과 캐바도서 겨마치 요 말이 켄라고면도다 요가 켈린 도 말레스 요 말에 베스나 요 말에 랍도 말에 랍도 예 또 밀럽좀 니티즈 계제인데 시기도 알아 되도 야고요
Even modern day scientists with regards to past lives they won't negate it completely, even if they don't
금세 통고야 말하고
yeah, they don't see a reason, but they won't accept it, but they don't completely dismiss it as not being the case. And that's a good from a kind of analysis point of view, a study point of view.
그래서 어디지 다들 저도
Good. So we have a question here. We'll go through. Geshe has said that the Tibetan word for afflictions and the word for delusions are different. We can conclude that they are not synonymous. Is this correct? If so, please, would Geshe explain more about the three types of afflictive obscurations?
What's that?
Question Somyuri. We'll do it one by one. We'll do the first one. Geshe has said that the Tibetan word for afflictions and the word for delusions are different. We can conclude that they are not synonymous. Is this correct? If so, would Geshe please explain more about the three types of afflictive obscurations? Nyomong Yorwadi. Chitang Nyomong Tang. Ke peje English sikta afflictions and delusions. Mental afflictions, mental delusions. Yeah, di mare. Tingunjab dan shirap ni yorba. Di dam nyomong la kapatus.
Chidale.
Nyomong chikche.
Are nyundila injisi kalawa.
Gross obscurations.
Ale, ta did say Japshana.
Subtle obscurations.
Mardus Japshana. Divasya Jarwa. Diba.
Yeah,
Divasya de. Dembaton Diba. Tabatova Diba. Tell a deposit.
Right. Well, first let's look at Tripa. The word afflictions and delusions is often used interchangeably in English. So anyway, the Tibetan word dripa is obscuration. So you can be obscured from seeing the true nature of things or liberation. Yeah, so there are like gross obscurations and subtle obscurations. Now, the gross obscurations are mainly obscurations that obscure you from liberation, liberated state.
Moranju Shisha Shisha, Tanju Yushirangil, somebody down the Truda. Ranju Shisha Chevina, and Yundip de la Yawasum Che.
Oh, Nyunjutse. Okay.
Yundula Yawasum Chera.
So most of us tonight have studied grounds and paths. We can talk about this gross and subtle obscurations from the different perspective of the tenant. Most of us have studied grounds and paths from the perspective of the Middle Way Autonomous School. So let's look at this first level of obscurations, the gross level. 3 divisions of that. Here in the Sumrwa.
Nyumonche. Yawajilerwa. Nyumon Koranta, Nyundip Chadora. Nyumonche. Ani Pajache. Ni Kazak Danzi. Pajanala, Nyumo Pajana, Kazandanzi, Pajani Mura. Yawasum.
Okay, so Nyumonche, Pajache, Kanzaki Dazen.
Nyumon Shab, Nyumon, Kazandanzi Shabe Paja.
Alice, somebody Karisha?
Kazak Danzi.
All grasping itself. So those 3 levels then of the gross obscurations are, the first one is afflictions.
Afflictions are the Nyumore.
The second one is imprints. And the third one is grasping itself of persons.
So
if it's an affliction, it is necessarily a mental factor.
그래서 단지 되라 뉴몬당 심중당 조심인가 여러.
But grasping at a self of persons has, you know, main minds and mental factors within it.
근데 심중이 때문이지 말이고 단다 텐데나 주니 난지기 말이고 사실도
Yeah, Tangpo.
어디 심중으로 말이고 된 심중으로 봐.
So when we look at the 12 links of interdependent origination, the first link of ignorance is Senjungwa.
다 대단 순대
That is a mental factor.
대단 순대의 기회 조심지어 봐.
Yeah.
뒤에 간산 단지로 봐. 뒤에 윤리비에 시작한 어디.
But what is in concomitance with it, the main mind of grasping at a self of persons, that is,
윤리라고.
yeah, that's a gross obscuration.
지금 윤리를 요숨다 세우차도로. 컨트롤 봐 세우차도로.
Is it clear then, these three divisions of gross obscurations, afflictions, imprints, and grasping at a self of persons? Is it clear now?
윤리를 요숨 세우차도로 요숨.
Yeah, we just need to get these three divisions of gross obscurations.
You're saying that afflictions and delusions are saying, you're saying that.
Yeah, because often I've heard of the three root poisons or the three delusions. Well, Lamazab says disturbing thought obscurations. These are often called mental afflictions. Delusions and afflictions are interchangeable. Yeah, nyamong.
Obscuration.
There are gross and subtle obscurations. What are we talking about? First, Geshe has done is the gross level, which obstructs nirvana. Ranyamo. Mudrup. Yeah, afflictions you could say the symptom. Yeah, all of the afflictions, we say are mental factors like desire, hatred. Right? I would say yes with the English word, but I've yet to find it. But yeah, but that's an English. It's the same word. Nyamong can sometimes be translated as afflictions and sometimes delusions. Kishla delusions the affliction trouble range. Yeah, it's just how it's interpreted, isn't it?
첼레들 삼다나 야고래 뉴모 식디 모던디 세상에 delusion라 그 크리스천게 직도면도래
yeah, so we really need to think, we really need to think on the way the thing functions. Whether you use delusion or affliction, you need to think of the definition of it. This is why definitions are really good. Yeah, the definition of affliction is that when it is produced in the person's continuum, it makes their mind unpacified and ill at ease, disturbs the mind. And it is a mental factor. So the definition would go like this: a mental factor which, when it is in the continuum of the person, makes them unsubdued and ill at ease. That would be the definition of. Yeah, and then within those gross obscurations, there are those which are intellectual and those are which are innate.
Kunda said that Dubde Wangi. Dubda, Jumzing Wangi, Yoya, or Dubda Penanzo, Soul said that you get Chu Kelly, Yajimishi, Kalinchimara, Dubdaji so good at Jumzi. What is it? And the Tajirajin said the number Kalinchimara, Hindu get Kalinchigara, the Dubde Wangi, the League Body.
So then this first level of the gross afflictions, you know, intellectual or innate, the intellectual level would be to believe in a concept. For example, if you're a Christian of a soul, or as we alluded to the self being permanent, unitary, and autonomous. That would be a type of intellectual idea that is grasping.
Hindu.
Hindu,
이제 남의 개념 말아라.
yeah, Philippa.
One class Geshe mentioned something about afflictive knowledge obscurations.
Shidrup.
아, 시드
And then go to
시드세야데
Then a yending Shidrup.
시드세야데 산제지 공방 토바체와 시제네로 지다와시 시바체와 되버진이들 시드시고라.
So this afflictive knowledge obscurations are those which prevent one being Buddha, or the knowledge an omniscient being has.
베나 딜라야다 쭉 딘지로와 딘지탄 티샤고 파자 니로와다.
So grasping at the truly existent phenomena and the imprints from doing so. Those two.
안디나라 렌델 몽 바도저 용고 렌델 몽 렌델 남샤 타신 타와 지다와시 메시바데 시딘나라 용고라데.
And then another thing that falls in this category of afflictive knowledge obscurations is not being able to see the subtle workings of cause and effect. Being obscured from that is that.
So are they mental factors?
The symptom,
제일 심중라.
yes, mental factors.
다도저 뇨모인 라게 이제 말해.
But I don't think you can say they are afflictions
쭉 단지 차차고라.
because they are churgi dugsin, right?
쭉 단지로와.
Yeah, they're grasping at phenomena, truly existent phenomena, yeah.
That was our question. We were wondering why the word afflictive knowledge was there.
Yeah, well,
Because it's not afflictive, is it? It's with a step.
afflictive in the sense that it obscures, though, so it is.
No, we're asking Geshe said,
Why would you have two sets of
Geshe just said
obscurations,
it's not
one called
afflictive.
afflictive and one called knowledge obscuration, and then put the word afflictive onto the knowledge as well? Why would you do that?
I don't know, I've never heard, when was it said, afflictive knowledge obscurations? Where is it?
it was in what class was it? Rather last year.
Ale nie ma kontradikcji afflictive knowledge obscurations in the shidrup, right? Afflictive. The nyamung tembe shidrup.
뇨모 이제 뇨모 시드 니모샤 말.
Then ngodrup tang shidrup kola dine shidrup se di baksha tang timber timba. Chögi timber timber.
디리 단다란 주벨로와.
Yeah.
엄마 텐주로라이나 파자메시 지기 샤요 말다. 시드.
Right. So in the middle way consequence school, in this area of subtle obscurations, they'd only have imprints. But in middle way autonomous, they would have grasping at phenomena.
나도 엄마란 주베 지고 거는 샤샤네 야슈리.
Yeah.
텐주 데데마다네 야.
Yeah, probably just leave it at autonomous school.
엄마란 주발라 쭉 단지당 디기 샤베 파자데 시드 차고라. 거대오잖아. 이래.
Yeah, so from the point of view of middle way autonomous, grasping at the self of phenomena and the imprints are this, what are called these subtle obscurations to knowledge.
야, 다 되죠.
One question from Fiona.
Yeah.
She said, for every verse, it says, what you show now is all keeping. So there is an advice of what to do.
양이 순절하니까.
If one follows that,
Yes.
how quickly does it work? Also, should we learn every verse by heart and read them every day?
The shloka really la tama di
양이 순절하는 코스.
yeah tenda sisi keling jab chera and the badungane lenyam pampacha kayana napo chakla the timber macha dine kunjo sum kona timber cha wa dine
예.
di chena dine Drebudi Jabumin Gre, Kadimin Gre.
Tadi chana jobu mi isa de chana kulung jowa jo jong jusun chadan shuk chenpo yona jobu mi gres yo kulung ya bo yo barwa
Yes.
jowa de shuk chenpo yo de je la ya ngu tadu de la beta samba juk de ya wo chung jong jusum chadan ya wo ji chambe le ji sana ni debu de pe se daran mi gres jobu mi gres 다 이거는 열면은 좋아요 열면은 왜냐 아니 겨와지마 다 나 겨와직질 겨와니 이제 겨와 숨질 미야 된데 내가 또 지중으로 왔을 때
How quickly or not these things affect one's practice or ripen on you depends on your motivation. So, for example, if you, from now on, I shall rely on these rituals alone. If your motivation is good, your action follows, and everything is,
슉첨부
yeah, it's strong, kind of like a strong intention and jorawa.
저와 무시 죽 상마야
Yeah, a strong intention, like preparation, action, and completion. If all of those make a full karmic path, if the full karmic path is there, then it can affect one in this very life. But if, for example, your motivation is not so strong or not pure, and or you don't act upon it in a thorough way with everything complete, then it might take 2, 3, whatever, a lot more lives.
근데 레기 도미된라 통준 연주지 레스디 레 한다 사이베 된 다가랑라 도미야 레게와이나 미게와이나 상마 니미야기 레 누바톱 첨부도 된데 연구여와 아니 전에 연주에서디 겨와 치마 다가랑라 미도야 된데 렌다 줄로 연주에서디 아니 겨와 니와 숨바 납자 직동 제라 도미야 된데 연구여와
Of course, in terms of karma that's experienced in this very life, if the virtue or non-virtue is very strong, then it can be experienced in this very life, or it can, if less strong, can mature in the next life. And then the third example is that it matures in some other life. It would be wonderful if one can memorize the verses, but can you?
디나네 믹스에 수수기 뒤준 수수기 좀 요새직나 어다디 야고 싶도 알았으면 태부도서 쇼르가 찍던데 유나 아니 신제 별리잖아 야고요로
But if one were to read one particular verse and identify a fault and think, oh, that really relates to me, then to just memorize that one verse would be good.
다 람사 키우치기 삼사는 지난데 거다 거래들래 안지 되게 조금 영향 레워지제 슉침부 쉽지 레워디 expectation 레워디 투두지나 도미야 당 딘데게 제나 아니야 저 제라 녀브려 녀가 요래데 데 둔두 추비주지 땡세 참마체와 샤와에 계정버렸어
님의 송기상계.
둔두 추비주지 땡버렸어
알레 추부 무투네.
추준
알레 추틱바.
투두 조고직나라 참마 야고 영향 상는데 당겨요 말했어
So then it would be a danger if one is all kind of gung-ho at the beginning and expecting a result and has a lot of expectation of the practice to help in a small time. But then if it doesn't, you could think of being less enthusiastic about Dharma. It is important to have a long-term view like drops of water, steady.
아예 날리죠
We'll stop now.
Page 31.